All right, we are moving on. We're on to body cavities. So we're going to talk about cavities in the human body, not cavities as in caries in your teeth, but something else. So here are standards and objectives. Pause it, peruse it, or read it to your heart's content. We're going to go on. So what are the functions of body cavities? Well, cavities protect your delicate internal organs from accidental shocks. It's openings, spaces in your body. They protect and cushion your organs from the jolting that occurs when we walk, when we run, when we jump. So there's spaces, like we're not solid filled. And it also allows significant changes in the size and shape of your internal organs. So organs like the stomach and the heart and the bladder, they can expand and contract without disrupting the surrounding organs and tissues. That's a good thing. All right, so let's go through the body cavities. We have dorsal body cavity. Okay, that dorsal, remember back, okay, posterior. So we have the cranial cavity and we have the vertebral or spinal cavity. It can be called either. And then we have the ventral body cavity. So ventral, right, toward the front, and have the thoracic cavity. And then we have the diaphragm that is going to be the divider between the thoracic cavity and the abdominal pelvic cavity. And then the abdominal pelvic cavity is divided into abdominal cavity and pelvic cavity. Okay, so now we're going to look at each one of those in turn. But here's a diagram showing it all together, and then we're going to focus on one at a time. So let's look at the dorsal body cavity. So we have the cranial cavity, houses your brain, and the vertebral or spinal cavity, which houses your spinal cord. And then, so we're going to cover the ventral separately, okay? So we have the thoracic cavity. It's the most superior one. It houses your heart and your lungs. And the inferior border is the diaphragm. So everything above the diaphragm in your thoracic region is in the thoracic cavity. And then remember, we have the abdominal pelvic cavity, but it's divided. So we're going to focus on those. So we have the abdominal, that's superior. So that's right below the diaphragm. Okay, so the superior border is the diaphragm. And what you find here in the abdominal cavity, mostly digestive organs, but also your kidneys. And then we have the pelvic cavity, and that's the inferior abdominal pelvic cavity. In fact, it's the most inferior of all of the ventral body cavities. So, and it houses your reproductive organs, the rectum, and the bladder. There are some other body cavities. So in addition to the dorsal and ventral, so dorsal, right, with the brain and spinal cord, ventral, we have the thoracic, the abdominal, and the pelvic. We have some other smaller cavities. So the oral cavity, nasal cavities, we have sinuses, we have orbital cavities, middle ear cavities, and synovial cavities, those at our joints. So there are some others, but they are small, and we will not focus on them. So the dorsal cavity is what to the ventral cavity? It's posterior, right? The heart is found in which cavity? Well, you could say ventral if we're talking about the whole group, or more specifically thoracic. What about the brain? Where is the brain found? In which cavity? Well, that would be dorsal, right? It's the whole category, or cranial to be more specific. And the ovaries are found in what cavity? Well, that would be ventral or abdominal pelvic as a broad sense, but most specific, it's in pelvic. And what about kidneys? What cavity are they found in? Again, that's ventral and abdominal pelvic, but most specifically abdominal cavity. And that's it. In class, we'll be doing a blue kit, but that's it. That's an overview of the body cavities, and hopefully today you learned something new.